Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world. Now then, oh, hang on, let me just turn this down. It's a somber day today. It's a good day in a way because we're going to have the sentencing of these two horrible, horrible men. I mean, the more you think about what these men did to this little baby, the more videos that have come out. Poor Preston, we're all here for Preston. We want to hear the sentencing. I don't know if it'll be shown live anyway. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late starting on the stream, but I had classes this morning. I was working and then I had to come up and sort the dogs out and everything. Anyway, I'm here now. I'm hoping the sentence will be soon because I do have to go later to take my son off to work. So I'm hoping the sentence will have come out before then. If not, well, I'll be back later when I get back to talk about it. But yeah, these two horrible men. This is the last day. Sorry, I should say that I have to show their faces because as soon as this sentencing comes out, I won't ever be showing their faces again or mentioning their names. They'll be going in the hellhole, and literally, because when they go to prison, of course, it's not going to be very good for them, is it? And what this is all is about, of course, is this beautiful little boy let down by everyone, really, to be honest. Social services, they've got their role to play. There's going to be, the government has announced inquiries. Anyway, we won't talk. Today's all about the sentencing. There'll be more to say about that, I think, as time goes on. We will not forget this absolute angel, will we? He will never, it should never be forgotten. He didn't have the best start in life because of the situation with his mum, who, of course, herself is a convicted murderer. So it's a, but I'm, it's such a difficult thing that I feel like she cared about Preston. Preston was taken off her. Sadly, her mum was not well enough to look after him as she was looking after her other child. And Preston, sadly, then became at the mercy of these two monsters who I think, they adopted him deliberately to either abuse him or just for him to be an accessory in their Instagram lives. That's how their lives were described, as Instagram lives. They're all about social media and appearances. And they were allowed to adopt this beautiful baby, even though, self admittedly, they had no experience whatsoever with babies. So, that I think is something that's got to be looked into. Was it just to fulfill a quota of diversity, because they were a same sex couple? It's not to do with whether they're gay or not, but they've got no experience with babies and they were given a baby. So it was, even if the worst things hadn't happened to Preston, it wasn't a very good omen, was it? Really, to give a baby. Anyway, I could just repeat that over and over again. It won't change it. This is what happened, and little Preston was like a lamb to the slaughter with those horrible men. So I'm going to follow through with the Manchester Evening News blow by blow account of what's happening. Don't know if the actual sentencing will be broadcast. I will keep an eye out for that as well. If anybody hears of any links where it's been shown, let me know. But first of all, hello, lovely lurkers. Thank you for watching. Thank you, everyone, for caring about Preston. All of you that have been with me through this case, and we've supported each other, haven't we? Because it's been very distressing to hear the details. But you know what? The details have to be heard, but we're not going to listen to them today unless they come up in the blog that I'm going to read out from the Evening News. But we don't have to keep talking about the injuries and etc. Because just want to see these men go into the hellhole, be taken out of circulation. What are you crying about? What? I don't know why the dog's crying. What's the matter? I'm just having a little scratch now, so. Yeah, we just want to see the back of them, don't we? And it'd be good to see them disappear into prison where they're not going to have a very good time, are they? And are we sorry? No. It's hard to feel so. You can't feel any sympathy for them because they'll get the same mercy, I suppose, in prison that they gave to that little baby. So, hello, lovely lurkers. Hello to Replay Crew. Thank you to everyone who's liked, shared, subscribed. Please leave your DNA on the subscribe button, the like button, the notification button. Special thank you to my members. Thank you for going that little extra mile in supporting my channel. Thank you as well to those of you who bought COVID, who've been very generous, very kind. Yeah, sent me emails, left nice comments. Thank you to everyone who's participated in my channel in any way, shape or form. Okay, it's quite a lot of you waiting here that have been chatting. Let's have a look. So, hello, Michelle. The press is saying 29 years. Here's hoping. I'm hoping for 33 years for Varley. I don't think that John will get this because his sentence is not murder, it's different, allowing the death of a child. But of course, there's also the SEX charges. I think for John it might be 20 years, maybe 25, but I'm hoping that it's for Varley, at least it's going to be over 30 years. Hi, Jacqueline. You hear that, I suppose, by crybaby, you mean Varley, that he's refused to attend. I thought they were going to stop people refusing to attend. Shouldn't be able to refuse to attend. You should have to face up to what you've done, in my opinion. Hi, Sean. Sean saying 25. Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Kelly. Everyone's saying hello to each other. Okay, so let's have a look at the evening news, see where we are. I mean, it may be that we've had the sentencing already because I think it was supposed to be 10:30 UK time. Oh, well, it's only 11:20 now Spanish time, so it's not 10:30 yet. So what we're going to have a look at I'm just going to have a look on Sky News because they sometimes have, if anyone knows if the sentencing is hang on. There is a live stream on. So the Sky News as well. Proceedings are underway. So I think we'll go to Sky News. I knew this, right. Okay, so let's go to Sky News. So I don't know where to come in because I've missed sort of the. Okay, so let's just remind ourselves of the charges. Varley was found guilty of murder, 2 counts of assault by penetration, 5 counts of cruelty to a child, SEX assault of a child, 13 counts of taking indecent photos or videos of a child, 1 of distributing an indecent photo of a child to his co-accused, and 1 of making an indecent photo. It's got to be over 30 years, in my opinion, for him. GF was found guilty of allowing the death of a child, 2 counts of child cruelty, and 1 count of SEX assault of a child. I'm worrying about his sentence. I'm hoping it'll be 20 years, but you know what? The tragic 13 months of Preston Davey's life. We'll look at that later because I want to catch up. Yeah, though the timeline and everything we'll look at after. Now, so the jurors were shown a wealth of evidence during the 8-week trial at Preston Crown Court. This included images and photos showing instances of child cruelty and medical evidence that showed injuries to Preston Davey's body were consistent with sex assault. Due to the shocking nature of the case, Mr. Justice Turner especially thanked the jury for their public service, and he added, "Once you have been discharged from this case, bearing in mind what we have called upon you to do, I am going to exempt you from the obligation to sit on a jury for life." Remember, we talked about that, thought that would probably happen. You know, these poor jurors, I hope they get some counselling. I mean, my God, how would you, it's been harrowing enough for us. We've only listened to it. They've seen it. They've seen the photos. They've seen the images, the videos. They know they've seen them. And it's bad enough just to hear about it, never mind to see it. So, no wonder they've exempted them. Jamie Varley will be back in court. It says he's coming back to court shortly to discover his sentence. Last time he was in the dock, earlier this week, he put his hands up to his face as the guilty verdicts were read out at Preston Crown Court at the end of a 7-week trial. He had been convicted of guilty on all charges, both of them. So he then collapsed to his knees, retching and vomiting. What a drama! Even then, he couldn't just respect the dignity of the occasion. Do you know what I mean? Retching and vomiting. He's obsessed with vomit, that man. And somebody leaving it. So somebody had to clear that up. He should have been made to clear it up himself. GF was convicted of allowing a child to die on sex assault. He made no reaction to the verdict. But his father shook his head. Now, I feel for his family because it'd be hard for them to accept the monster that their son is. But do you know what? They've been there, presume they've listened to the evidence just like everybody else seen the videos. Are they going to think, are they going to think, oh, no, my little Johnny couldn't have done that? Okay. So proceedings are underway. So Judge Mr. Justice Turner has begun the proceedings at Preston Crown Court. So far, the court has heard about Varley's convictions and the guideline sentences for each. And then it reminds us of what he's been found guilty of. The court is told that the sentencing will focus on the initial conviction of murder, and that's where the majority of the time in prison will come from. The suggestion is that he will receive considerable time in prison. Then the court hears about the convictions of GF. Oh, it's just updated as I was in the middle of it. And related sentencing guidelines. So don't forget, the judge has guidelines, doesn't he, for all these separate convictions. But he also has a discretion, but he has to follow the law, precedents, etc. But also, he has the discretion as he is the judge, doesn't he? Right, I'm probably going to start crying now. I'm probably going to start crying because we've got the victim impact statements coming up. And first of all is Preston's biological mum. Now, this is such a conundrum, isn't it? Because Sarah, when she was 13 or 14 years old, she did a terrible, terrible thing as well. Took the life of an elderly lady a person that was just as vulnerable as Preston, but vulnerable in a different way. Preston was vulnerable for his young age, and Lily, who Sarah and her friend murdered quite brutally. I mean, they did. We can't shy away from this. We can't pretend it never happened. It happened. And Lily, she deserves her voice as well, just as much as Preston, just as much as any victim does. But also, there's the other part of me that just my heart bleeds for this mum because of her past. Because of her past, I suppose that's maybe why she couldn't have Preston. Or I think she's obviously got substance abuse problems. Preston's biological dad also. So it's like makes you speechless, really, because even all those things, if you take them into account, doesn't mean to say she is not suffering now. To lose your baby in this way. Anyway, so Preston Davey's biological mother, Sarah, is reading her victim impact statement to the court. She says he was perfect from the moment he was born. He was perfect. He's such a beautiful baby. I mean, it'd be horrible whatever baby it happens to, of course, but Preston, we've seen him, he's adorable. He was laughing, he was happy, he was bouncy, he was healthy when he was with his foster mum, and what this couple reduced him to. The second he was placed in my arms, I felt completely in love with him. He was my baby, my only son, and from that day on, I never wanted to let him go, she said. For the first 7 months of his life, I was lucky enough to spend precious time with him. He had the most beautiful smile, one that could light up any room. He did. And the bond we shared was something anyone could see. I'm going to put a picture up. Oh, this, honestly, the tragedy of this case. The tragedy of this case. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Heather. The tragedy is layered, isn't it? There's so many layers to the tragedy in this. Lily, let's look. See, this is Preston's biological mum. The picture should come up. So there she is. This is Lily, the pensioner who was murdered. And there's Preston, the innocent in it all. He didn't do anything wrong. And I don't know. See, I don't know Sarah. If Sarah ever is watching one of my videos or whatever and wants to come on and talk about it, or I'm happy. I just literally don't know what to say about it. I can't judge Sarah. For something she did, she was so young, but it's still terrible, so it's awful, isn't it? I don't know what. I'm sure Sarah is suffering enough herself, to be fair. I'm sure she's suffering enough that, we can't judge her, I think. I don't know. Let me know what you think. He had the most beautiful smile, one that could light up any room, and the bond we shared was something everyone could see. Those memories should have brought me comfort, but they are now mixed with pain because I know what you put him through in his final months. She recalls the day he was taken from her, one of the worst days of my life. I had no choice in that decision. I tried to take some comfort in believing he would be safe, loved and protected, and he was with his foster parents, Sandra and Paul. I trusted them. They in the system trusted you. That trust was completely and unforgivably broken, she says. Preston was innocent, he was defenceless. He relied entirely on you, the adults responsible for him, to love him, care for him and keep him safe. Instead, you caused him suffering. You took away his chance to grow, to go to school, to make friends, to live a full life. You took everything from him. It's a very, anyway, this is about Preston. We won't talk, in another video we may talk about this dichotomy, this sort of ethical thing of, and Sarah says, I will never forgive you. Oh my God, it's, anyway, better that I don't comment and just read it out. Davey goes on to say, there are no words that describe the moment she was told Preston had died. My world ended, a part of me died with him, she tells the court. But what makes it even more unbearable is knowing that his death was not an accident. It was something cruel, something he did not deserve. He did not deserve it. Something that he should never have been allowed to happen. And of course, remember, all the red flags. I'd always wanted to have him christened, and this is something I prayed you would do for him. We had to do this when he was dead. A day which should be a celebration was another day of mourning, suffering, and filled with sadness. I will never forgive you for what you did to my son and what you stopped him from becoming and achieving in his life. Davey admits that she is left trying to live a life that no longer makes sense. To my beautiful blue-eyed boy Preston, you were and always will be loved beyond words. I wanted you with me every single day, we all did. Your Nana fought so hard for you, and you deserved to be with the people who loved you. You were failed by the very people who were supposed to protect you. Oof. So that's what Sarah's victim impact statement. Let's go back to, that's the last posting there on the Sky News one. Right. Let's go to the Manchester Evening News, who's talking about they already passed that law that you can't that defendants have to appear for their sentencing, because there's been some notorious cases, haven't there, instances of defendants refusing to go for their sentencing, refusing to listen to the victim impact statements. They definitely should not be, and I'm sure they've passed a law that they have. Anyway, they're there. Even Varley is there. They've probably had to sedate him. I hope he doesn't throw up again. So Jamie Varley is dressed casually in the dock, wearing faded black jeans and a dark polo shirt. John GF is wearing a navy suit, as he has. Gosh, doesn't matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're still monsters. You can wear your nice suit as much as you want. Peter Wright KC will represent the prosecution. Nick Johnson KC is here for Jamie Varley, along with Richard Varden Junior Counsel. Anne White KC, she was the defence barrister for John GF. She's not in attendance, but John GF will be represented by Junior Counsel Stephen Swift, who has been present throughout the trial. So the prosecution asked the judge to consider a whole life term for Varley. Whole life tariff, that's a possibility, because if it fits, there's a criteria for whole life tariffs, isn't there? And it includes SEX offences as well, doesn't it? So that's what he's asking for. So the prosecution is asking for a whole life tariff. Let's see what whole life tariffs. So that's very unusual in the UK. There are that he's got it, hasn't he? That Wayne Cousins who came around, he got a whole life tariff. I can't think of anybody else offhand. But there's a few, choice prisoners there in British prisons who have received a whole life tariff, which means they've never got any chance of parole ever. No end to the, they'll be in prison until they die. Sort of, it's a whole life tariff is like life without parole, of course, in America, or for the most heinous crimes like serial or aggravated murders. Prisoners with this sentence you have to be 21 years old. Older, it's rarely applied. It only makes up 1% of total life sentence prison population in the UK. So these are the conditions. So, well, not the conditions, but these are the cases where we quite often see whole life tariffs. So if it's 2 or more people that have been murdered and it included significant pre-planning or abduction, that does not apply in this case, does it? But the second one does. The SEX or sadistic murder of a child. So you may come up for a whole life tariff. Politically or ideologically motivated murders, e.g. terrorism, that results in mass casualties, and the murder of a police or prison officer in the line of duty. So I think the thing is, who was that? Dale Cregan, he got a whole life tariff, didn't he? Who murdered those police women? I think he got a whole life tariff. That he would have qualified for it because of the murder of a police or prison officer in the line of duty. But so you know what, Jamie does qualify because his murder included the SEX or sadistic murder of a child. So you never know. He may get a whole life order. That would be a good result, wouldn't it? Puts forward consideration of a whole life order or minimum term of at least 30 years. That's what I was saying. I thought it might be about 33 years for Varley. There are also charges of assault by penetration, cruelty ×3, GBH, SEX, assault. I'm not going through all the charges again, it's too upsetting. Mr. Wright has set out the sentencing guidelines in connection with all the charges. The judge says it is inevitable Varley will be sentenced to life, and he will have to decide how to categorise that. All the other offences will be concurrent, he says. The indecent images are uncategorised, and although they are serious offences, the judge says he will not pass separate sentences. They will be taken into account in considering the overall sentence. The thing is, he's really basically what he's going to do. He's going to sentence him for them, but they'll, the murder, they won't be added on, I don't think, to the murder sentence. I don't think so, anyway. So GF faces a jail term of between 12 and 18 years for allowing a death of a child. Is that all the death of a child is worth then? 12 and 18 years. I was hoping he'd get 20. I was hoping he would get 20 years, but anyway, in terms of John GF, allowing the death of a child has a starting point of 14 years with a range of 12 to 18 years. And there are also charges of cruelty and sex assault of a child under 13. Surely he's got to get 20 years at least. I mean, he should get more. In my eyes, they're both as bad as each other, but anyway. Mr. Wright Casey says the Crown has sought to establish aggravating and mitigating factors. He submits the appropriate starting point for Varley is a whole life order. However, the judge must consider all the factors in the case. Mr. Wright says that the Crown has sought to establish aggravating and mitigating factors. He submits the appropriate starting point for Varley's a whole life in the case. Okay. Mr. Wright Casey says there were further charges of possession of extreme pornography in connection with material found on Varley's phone. Hi, Julie. Hi. Now, we said this, didn't there? There would be more. Now, remember, we heard through the case that Varley had on his phone a locked folder. Wasn't it titled SEX or something? And it was password protected. Now, I have heard rumours, and they are only rumours, I've got to say, on Facebook. You know, you can't believe everything you see on Facebook. I heard rumours that some of that porn, I probably shouldn't say, anyway, YouTube's going to demonetize this anyway, so no, but I might as well say what I want. That there was bestiality on his phone. That's what's been said on social media. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's true. We haven't heard a case. We haven't heard that evidence. But that what they are saying, what the prosecution is saying here, where's it gone? That these charges of possession of extreme PORN, God, it made me go, I wonder if that dog is okay. Because, you know, if you know, what have they done to the dog? If they did what they've done to poor little Preston, they wouldn't be above doing something to a dog, would they? You know, and just makes you wonder, were the photos on his phone, you know, and where is that dog now? Who's looking after the dog? Maximus. Poor little thing. So there are further charges of possession of extreme P in connection with material found on Varley's phone. He says there is no public interest in pursuing these charges, and the prosecution asked for them to lie on the file, a legal term meaning they will not be proceeded with. Now, I understand that, but I do think it is in the public interest to know everything about how horrible this man is. Everything. You know, I don't think, why should he have his privacy protected? You know, the terrible things that he had on his phone, why should it be protected? Personally, I think they should, I mean, it'll probably come out anyway, you know. But yeah, I did hear that rumour on Facebook, which I say, don't know if it's true or not. But I think one thing we know is he's a really horrible man. And the thing is, the other man is just as bad. John GF is just as bad as him because he was his partner and he went back with him after Preston died. You know, carried on sleeping with him. You know, I'm sure they were still having sex, you know. They didn't become eunuchs or bloody celibate because of what happened to um, Preston, did they? And he went back with him. So I think they're just as bad as each other. They're both depraved. And John GF is just looking in a way that he's not been found guilty of murder, of course, but really allowing the death of a child, it's just the same, really. What's the difference? What's the difference? Bloody hell. That poor little baby. God, vile men. I mean, this is a case on par with the Moors murders and horrible cases that are one of the worst cases, I think, that we have ever seen in Britain, don't you think? Cannot believe. This is where you just, these monsters walk amongst us. We've got a high-flying sales executive in John GF. We've got a teacher ahead of year in Jamie Varley, popular with these students. Yeah, sure, good job they're off the streets. That's the good thing. But I'm going to do a video about the over the pond in America, Rex Heuermann, the serial killer, the Gilgo Beach serial killer. He was sentenced yesterday. We always knew what he would get because that was part of his plea deal. He agreed to plead guilty to the murders of, I think it was 6 women. There's probably more. He was another one, just walked, he was an architect, unassuming, family man, affable, not, you wouldn't say he was the life and soul of the party, but nobody knew that what he was capable of, what he was doing every time his wife was out of the state, going off doing whatever she was doing. He was murdering escorts in their home, and then leading a normal life. Anyway, I don't know if you got to see that sentencing, but it was brilliant. The judge really went for him, and I'm going to show that on another video. I was going to try and do it early this morning, but I just didn't have time. But we will look at the sentencing of Rex Heuermann. So it'll be interesting. See what this judge has to say to these horrible men, because he'll have a few words to say to them, of course, and he knows all the details. So whatever, hi Joanne, whatever those other charges or those other extreme pornography that Varley had on his phone, if it was bestiality or whatever it was, he's a pervert, and the judge will know that. The judge will know what they are and have probably seen those photos, and the prosecution said it's not in the public interest or whatever for people to know about that. But, this comes down as well to what I said right from the beginning. When you're trying to adopt a baby, you should have to hand over your phone. Sorry, if people don't think that you shouldn't. Varley should have to have handed over his phone for a police check. In this day and age now, people download. I mean, he loved photos, didn't he? I mean, the good thing about this is that he's been sort of hoisted by his own petard, really, hasn't he? Because it's his obsession with keeping trophies, making videos, making photos. Without them, this case probably would never have been able to come to court, would it? So it's because he's a pervert and he likes to keep records of everything that he's managed to come to court. But so when these horrible men applied to adopt, their phones should have been handed over. And it wouldn't matter even if he deleted those horrible porn pictures he had. The police would have been able to get them back, wouldn't they? And not only it should have been over before they were even considered for adopting a beautiful baby like Preston, who's so vulnerable. A baby, you couldn't get much more vulnerable, really, could you? Because, you know, even older children, at least maybe they could say something, they'd have a chance. But Preston couldn't tell anybody what was happening to him. So their their devices should have been checked on a regular basis. I mean, honestly, if I adopted a baby tomorrow and the social services said to me, well, every month we've got to check your social media, you know, your phone or whatever. I mean, I suppose it can always get around it by getting burner phones or whatever, but there should have been ongoing checks of their phones. Why not? You know, if you don't want you know, if people are going to moan about that's invading their privacy, well, it's only invading your privacy. Don't put bestiality on your phone then, or I mean, what I don't ever understand that argument really when people say, oh, it's invading your privacy. But if you had nothing to hide, then wouldn't matter, would it? Thank you, Joanne, for the super sticker. That's very kind. Thank you so much. Thank you for caring about Preston. Thank you, all of you that are on here, because, you know, it's good that we can be on here and talk about it together, because it is very distressing. And that shared outrage makes us feel better, doesn't it? Anyway, sorry, let's go back to the. So, yeah. So he's got other charges of possession of extreme porn. What is it? I wonder. You know, I mean, charges of extreme porn. That's got to be really extreme, hasn't it? You know, you can go on porn sites like Pornhub, and there's not much you can find on there, I suppose. But so for it to be even worse than that, you know, what do they mean by extreme porn? I don't know these days. Just makes you wonder. I mean, were the babies on there? Can't have been, surely. Anyway, so both defendants will be on the sex offenders register for life. Well, that doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter for Varley. He's going to be in prison for life. But John GF will be out at some point. He's only 32 or something. So even if he gets a 20-year minimum sentence, presuming he gets out on parole, I think out on parole if he doesn't behave himself in prison, because he is like chillingly sort of, oh, you know, he's so, oh, I'm so nice, and oh, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. He's probably likely to get parole because, you know, don't forget that the prisons are overcrowded. In a way, sort of, I hope he does get parole eventually, just people hound him, you know. But anyway, he's going to get hounded enough in prison, of course. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, so for him, he'll be on the sex offenders register for life. So even if he does get released, I mean, Varley's, you know, Varley's never going to probably, you know, it's never going to matter that he's a sex offender because he'd probably never be out in normal life again. But I think that GF will be out one day. I won't be here to see it, but you know, maybe in 20 years, maybe even before that. You hear of all sorts, don't you? So SEX harm prevention orders have been drawn up for each defendant, which Mr. Wright Casey says are necessary and proportionate to each defendant. Yeah. The thing is, Sean, I suppose the way that you find bestiality on the internet is by keying it into Google. But surely that should set off alarm bells. And then there's the dark web, isn't there, and what have you. And the thing is, we don't know how you would do it because we're not interested in it. We wouldn't even dream of it. But I suppose, you know, people who are twonks, they know how to find these things. And the other thing is they know how to find each other as well, don't they? They know how to find other people who have got similar sick interest to them. Um, I wouldn't even dream of putting it in my search engine for research, that sort of thing. That what you gonna do? Oh, just freaking not. And social media has got to Google and that they've got to take responsibility. There should be something that flags up as soon as you put a word like that in, bestiality in Google. Then they should be bloody alarm bells go off at Google. And if you are doing research, because you could be doing research for a book, or you could, there's all sorts of reasons. It could be in the police or something. Then you should have to fill in like some sort of inquiry for, like why you're doing it, who you are. You should at the very least have to give your identity. So, people should know who's searching for these things. And I'm sick of people talking about privacy. What about Preston's privacy? Fucking the privacy is always for the perpetrator. If you're not a pervert or a monster or a PDF, you don't need you don't deserve your privacy. Sorry, if you're not a PDF or a monster or whatever, you wouldn't be worried about your privacy because you're not doing anything wrong. I just don't get it when people put, oh, but it's privacy. Well, yeah, what? So you're entitled to be private about bestiality, are you? That you're entitled to that? That's like, oh, don't you interfere with my civil human right to search bestiality if I want to? What? Just drives me absolutely crazy. How you're, what know more about people's civil rights who are perverts who are looking for things like that. Couldn't give a shit about their privacy personally. I care more about people, people like Preston being protected. All of us being protected, and these people should be named in shame. Sorry, they should. So, that both defendants will be on the SEX offenders register for life. Mr. Wright Casey also asked for forfeiture and destruction of the mobile phones, which were seized from each defendant. Oh, so he's asking for their phones to be destroyed. Well, I presume the police have got they'll keep all the videos on file and that. So the defendants have been on remand so far for 370 days. Mr. Wright Casey also says the court will need to consider whether to sentence GF as a dangerous offender, a legal term which allows the court to pass an extended sentence. God, I hope so. Which means closer supervision upon release from prison. He's not going to get sentenced. Simon Driver says there are victim statements from Preston's birth parents, Sarah Davey and Gary Nolan, and from his foster carers, Sandra and Paul Cooper. Now, he read that let's go back to that again. Charges. Just going back to what I've already read out. Hang on. Where's the... Now, I read out the mum's. See how that's just repeating itself. Go up to the top and go down might be better. I read you out Sarah's. Why is that not updated? Let's see if I can find it up here. Foster mum, foster dad, birth father. Okay, so this is the This is the witness impact statement of the father. Now I read out Sarah's victim impact statement, and this is his birth father, Gary Nolan. Gosh, so there was another family there. Did he not have a mum or a dad or a sister or someone that could have taken Preston? You know, if for whatever reason he couldn't have him. So the birth father says Preston was the son I never got to meet, and now I never will. He says Preston was the son I never got to meet and now never will. Sarah and I already had a daughter together who was not quite 4 years old in the summer of 2023. I also have two other daughters who were 8 at the time. Surely somebody could have taken Preston. Following Preston's birth and being confirmed as his father, I was awaiting an appointment with the social services. The appointment would have been my opportunity to say hello and goodbye to Preston, all within the space of an hour before he was taken away. This is what kept me going and made me feel happy I would get to meet my son. But I bet they had something to do with that. My eldest daughter was close to the daughter I have with Sarah. So he's the father of Preston's and meeting Preston. She would spend time with the daughter I have with Sarah and take her away on trips. Something that she wanted to do with Preston too. Sorry, I've just got to look at something here. It won't be a sec. Oh, it's all happening. I wish I had a day off today that I could just concentrate on this case, but sadly, I don't. I just need to check something. Ah, yeah. Today's the 18th, isn't it? Okay. That's okay. I've still got time. I can still carry on. Hi, Lauren. Yeah, we probably could send them hate mail. I don't know. So she would spend time with the daughter I have with Sarah and take her away on trips. Something that she wanted to do. I think we'll have Preston's photo up for a bit. I'm sick of looking at these two men. Well, I won't ever have to look at them again, hopefully after today. But let's put a little picture up of Preston. This adorable baby. I mean, really, literally, look at his little face. Oh my God, what absolute twats those men are. Sorry. Excuse my French, but sorry, not sorry. I couldn't give a shit. They are twats. What's he saying? A day I remember so well, it was just awful. Two female officers came to see me and informed me that Preston had been killed and that two men had been bailed pending an investigation. Due to legal matters, a lot of information was withheld from me. Upon hearing the news, I remember officers taking hold of me and me blanking out. The next thing I recall is waking up in hospital 2 days later. I'm told I was hysterical and crying, and it was for my own safety that I was taken to the hospital. Clearly, I must have been in a bad place mentally. God, I'm not surprised. Upon being discharged from hospital, I turned to drink, which I knew wasn't the answer, but I felt anxious about everything. Oh my God, I'm not surprised you turned to drink. I was having nightmares about Preston, after hearing about the autopsy. Oh, these included seeing some horrific images in my mind. The only thing that got me off the alcohol was when I started throwing up blood. At that point, I knew I needed help. Prior to that, I didn't realize just how hard hearing the news of Preston had hit me. I'm thankful to the church community that they have supported me, and I am now in a better place mentally and teetotal. Well done, well done. But despite that, I am still to this day on antidepressants and anxiety tablets, things that have only been required during my following my release from hospital. My God, well that's it. How would you get through this? And people might say, oh, well, he wasn't there for Preston at the time. Maybe he wasn't, but that he'll be feeling worse because of that. I think people who know that they've made mistakes in their life, they feel it more, don't they? He's be feeling the blame. He will be feeling it as well. See, it just keeps. I don't know why it keeps doing. So that's now we've got a statement here from this is the foster dad statement. In 2022, myself and Sandra fostered Preston from 5 days old and brought him up as our own, as we always do with all our foster children. Preston was an absolute pleasure to look after. He was the most amazing little boy who lit up the room as you walked into it. Oh, he was so small and vulnerable, you couldn't help but love him immediately. Preston's smile was infectious, and he brightened up my day from the second he woke up. Mrs. Cooper, let's have a look. So Sandra, let's listen to Sandra. Sandra's the foster mum. Let's see what she had to say. Oh, going back to the birth dad, Gary. Right, he said he was having night birth dad again. Sorry, it's a bit over the place, but it's just the way it seems to be coming up on here. I always hoped that we would get Preston back at some point. Sarah's mum, Debbie, looks after the daughter I have with Sarah, and I would have loved for Preston to have gone to live with them. Now that the daughter I have with Sarah is growing up, she asks about her little brother, and she wants to know whether he is in heaven. We explain that he is, and that he is watching down on her. Preston was my first and only son. The fact that he has been taken away from me. The fact that he's been taken away from me has stopped me from having a father-son relationship. I was looking forward to doing the simple things with him, playing football, teaching him how to ride a bike, having him ask me for help, etc. And of course, celebrating his birthdays. This had ever having and hearing the details of what Preston suffered is horrible. No one should have to suffer like that, let alone a baby. It's disgusting. I've seen things in the courtroom I should never have had to see. Preston went through that. So why shouldn't I have to see it too, no matter how disturbing it is? So what he's saying is, it's sort of almost like a baptism of fire. Is that the right thing to say? He wanted to see what Preston had been through because Preston went through it. says, I've had to get rid of my smartphone to prevent me looking online at things about Preston. It was getting to me. It's all over the internet and everywhere I looked. People putting opinions in without knowing the facts and having to see what I and Preston have had to see. It's just too distressing. How can they call him Elijah because they changed his name, didn't they, to Elijah? When he is Preston, and he will always be called and remembered as that. It makes me angry that's been allowed to happen. So now we've got the foster mum, Sandra. Sandra Cooper, Preston's foster mum, who cared for him from him being 5 days old, has stepped up to read her statement in person. So probably by the prosecution solicitor, but Sandra's standing up. I'm glad she's had a chance to to address those men. Preston's death has had a huge impact upon our lives. Preston was going to be the last child we fostered. However, we could not retire after Preston died. We felt we had a duty to other children and could not sit back and enjoy ourselves, knowing that other children were being abused, mistreated, and could die. So the thing is, everybody's feeling guilty except the actual twonks who did it. That's a typical thing, isn't it? Notice that often covering true crime, and especially in the victim impact statements, they always feel guilty that they could have done something. And the people who do not feel guilty, is always the perpetrators, isn't it? My husband and Paul have continued to foster children to protect. Preston's death has changed my perspective on life. Things I once felt were important, I now feel are not. I realise life is too short. Well, God, you can't get much shorter than poor little Preston's life, could you? Couldn't get much shorter than Preston's life, that's for sure. 13 months. That's all he got, but thanks to them. Gosh, it is so, I think 100% this has got to be the worst case that I've ever covered. I just cannot believe. Anyway, I don't know why, because, people are capable of great evil. There is the devil out there, and he works through people. These men, but see how they walk amongst us. There's Varley, head of year at his school, popular with his students. John G.F., high-flying salesperson's job dealing with multi-million pound contracts. Paul and I will often watch the videos we took of Preston when he was happy with us, laughing and giggling, playing with his toys, smiling. Preston's face would light up when we looked at him. He was joyful, so content and happy, with sparkly, smiley eyes. That is how we want to remember him. I will often dream about Preston. And I feel that he is still alive. But when I wake up, I realise he has died. And I go through the trauma again of knowing he has died and how. I just want to see his smiling, happy face again. I'm devastated about his death. And I struggle when I think about what pain and torture he has been through before he died. Bless him. Paul and I, that's her husband, have attended court and listened to the evidence, and we now need to remember Preston as he was when he's in our care. Yeah, after today, I'm not going to talk about the abuse that he suffered. Preston, I know he only had a short life, but he needs to be remembered for what he was, a lovely, happy, smiley baby, and not reduced to what these horrible men did to him. Preston was wonderful, happy, lit up every room. Preston will remain in our thoughts and prayers forever. On 2026, I was made aware Varley and GF had been convicted in relation to the offences against Preston. I previously thought guilty verdicts would give us relief from the pain, but I realised or sorry we should not have done that would make the pain easier. Paul Cooper, Preston's foster dad, has now stepped up to read his statement. He says in 2022, myself and Sandra fostered Preston from 5 days old, brought him up as our own as we always do. He was a pleasure to look after. He was the most amazing little boy. He lit up the room as you walked into it. He was so small and vulnerable, you couldn't help but love him immediately. Yet that's what normal people, when they look at Preston, would think, look at that little lovely baby. You want to give him a cuddle. You want to make him laugh. You want to you just want to, you know, make him happy. But not those two twonks. These men looked at a tiny little baby like Preston and thought of sex. You know? They look and torture. I mean, even if you take the sex thing away, the way Varley just was sadistic, leaving him to cry in the bath, spinning him, at the park so too fast, making him cry. John GF, when Preston was hanging over the bars of the cot, even if you think, if you gave him the benefit of the doubt and thought it wasn't sex, which of course it was, but just, he was too busy making a roast dinner. He just left him there, even though his lips were blue. They're vile men, aren't they? I mean, really, you can't get much worse than these two. Is there anything worse than this? How could you look at that little face and think of doing the things they did? What's wrong with them? I don't know why I'm even trying to work it out, because you can't work it out. Preston's smile was infectious and brightened up my day from the second he woke up. We fostered Preston until he was 9, nearly 10 months old. By this time he had developed his little personality and he was thriving. Saying goodbye to him and handing him over to Varley and McGowan for Zachary was extremely difficult. However, we believed at the time this was the best thing for Preston. He was going to a loving family. What happened to him after this? In 2023, we found out about Preston's death via a social worker. Let's get a picture of Preston back. As well as his little orange baby grow. So cute. Adorable little boy. Hi. So this was less than 4 months after he had left us. Since this, over the past few years, we've been able to find out what really happened to Preston in dribs and drabs, and this has devastated me. Fostering Preston felt like he was my own child, and to hear the cruel things that happened to him in such a short space of time has emotionally and physically drained me. God, I'm not surprised. Even to this day, I tell myself this is not real or possible. Then reality hits, and it breaks me again to think about the suffering that Preston went through. I have found out that this I have found that this has affected me personally. Since this, I find myself waking up 3 or 4 times during the night thinking about Preston. Sometimes I can be awake for hours thinking about him. So many people cared about Preston, but not these two twonks, and they were the ones who had him. They were the lucky ones. They were lucky to have him. I never thought I was an emotional person, however. These past 3 years, I haven't gone through a week without crying. Sometimes it might not be anything to do with Preston or his case, however. I just become upset over little things. I feel like a totally different person. I even get anxious when the children leave my sight within my own home. I think about the world and the people out there. And if these so called respectable people can do this, then anyone could. You'd be frightened of sending your child to school, wouldn't you, after this? I do not trust anybody anymore. There hasn't been a day go by I haven't thought about Preston and what he went through. I just wish we could have kept him. In the process of Preston being adopted, myself and Sandra decided to retire from fostering after he had gone to his new family. We spent a very short time without any children other than the odd few days covering respite. After Preston's death, during our retirement, we got a phone call to ask if we would foster 3 siblings. Normally, it would have been Sandra saying yes, and I would weigh things up. However, I immediately said yes. I couldn't handle the thought of the siblings going to another family and not knowing what might happen to them. This thought, it should be a positive thought of finding a family for the children. However, it has made me very anxious. Oh, there's a little clicking noise going on in my house. Has made me very anxious about where they are going and who to. I already know that these next steps are going to bring back memories of Preston, and I am going to be extremely anxious. During the trial Sandra has attended in person, I needed to stay at home to support our current foster children. However, I've been following the live updates online. I had to do this to show support for Preston. However, hearing what happened to him has been heartbreaking and caused so much anxiety and stress. I'm really struggling to put into words how this has emotionally affected me. I feel like I've lost my own child. Initially, I loved looking back at pictures and videos of as I just picture the trauma and the things I've heard about what happened to him. Just must have been awful. It's been awful, bad enough for us. We didn't even know Preston. This couple, they loved Preston. They had him in their home for quite a long time. As a foster carer, you have to put so much trust in the system and the persons responsible for caring for a child. What happened to Preston has caused me to lose that trust, thus affecting me socially. And through being a foster carer, I don't see being a foster carer as employment, more like a vocation. Preston had his whole life ahead of him, one that should have been a happy life with a new family. That's enough. The pain that I am going through to even speak about this and the way his life was cut so short. I will never forget you, Preston. Speaking for Varley, he's probably going to get angry. We're going to get angry, aren't we? Nick Johnson KC will now speak on behalf of Jamie Varley. He says he wishes to immediately acknowledge the manifest seriousness of the crimes being sentenced today. He said, And real whole life order is a matter which ought to be given real consideration. Oh, that's good. He refers to legal principles which apply to whole life orders. He said they are reserved for the most serious cases, even in the context of murder. Mr. Johnson, Casey, says there are three features which allow the judge to draw short of a whole life order, which he is going to set out. Right, there's going to be some angry outbursts here, sorry. So if you're sensitive to bad language, you might hear some here from me. I'm sorry, I just can't help it. Varley did not set out to adopt a child with intent to harm them. Well, we don't know that. I personally think he did. I personally think the only he either adopted a child to harm them and abuse them, or it was just to go with his Instagram life, like, a Gucci bag, just because it's fashionable as well for gay couples to adopt these days. So he just wanted, he didn't not adopt this child thinking he would give it a lovely life. That is 100% certain in my eyes. Whether he set out to adopt him deliberately to abuse him or hurt him, I don't know. But he definitely did not adopt. They did not look to adopt for the benefit of the child. I think that's 100% certain. Aye. He says the jury's verdict shows an sex interest from Varley towards Preston. Preston recovered quickly from similar hypoxic episodes, and the defendants had plans for his future, moving to a bigger house. They didn't have plans for his future, they had plans for their future. Preston didn't need a bigger house. They had a sort of two-bedroom terrace, as long as he was treated nicely and he was happy. He didn't need a bigger house. Mr. Johnson says there was a lack of premeditation when the men began the adoption process. Well, we don't know that. He says Varley became an increasing risk to Preston as he struggled to cope with the demands of looking after a young child. Yeah, because he's a selfish twat. They adopted a baby. They're saying they didn't have any experience with babies, but he's got loads of nieces and nephews. Loads. They're supposed to. He says this is not the same as a person who has set out to adopt a child with intent to harm them, but how do we know that he didn't? He also says there is a lack of previous convictions. Yeah, remember, not even a parking ticket. They were very proud of that, weren't they? The two twonks, both of them. Oh, no previous convictions, not even a parking ticket. Well, I've got parking tickets, but do you know what? I never murdered a baby. Funny that, isn't it? What's better? And evidence of positive good character of Varley. Ex-colleagues said he was brilliant in his pastoral role and wanted the best for his students. He delayed the adoption process for the pupils' GCSEs. Oh, what a fucking hero he is. What an absolute hero. Probably because he got paid for anybody else in his whole life. He did a drama queen at the hospital. Oh, I'm going to die. Effie killed him. Mom. He only cares about himself. Wasn't caring about Preston. Does not care. He never cared about Preston. Only how Preston could make his life better. And because as typical baby, he was hard work. All babies are hard work, even if they're the best baby in the world, best sort of calmest, most tranquil. It interfered, didn't it, with his lifestyle, and he got resentful of John out there at work doing whatever. I think John was probably seeing other people. We saw that in his messages. He's resentful, bitter, did not give a shit about Preston. Definitely not. Anyway, he's the defence. I suppose that's his job, to try and defend. Mr. Johnson asked the judge to draw back from a whole life order, approach the sentence by taking a minimum term of 30 years, starting at 30 years, which would be significantly aggravated. Yes, he's got to get at least 33 years. Yes, thank you, Joanne. Yeah, prayers for the foster mum, the grandparents on all sides, and prayers for Preston's biological mum, because although she did a terrible thing in her past, she's destroyed by this as well. So, and I think we've got to spare a thought as well for Varley and for Zachary's, their parents, what are they thinking of all this? Imagine finding out your son had done all this. So the defence is asking for minimum 30 years. Okay. We'll see. Mr. Swift, on behalf of John GF, says the multiplicity of offending may lead the court to a very high culpability bracket. He says the offending relating for failing to protect Preston and remove him from harm contrasts with the evidence of a hard-working, he's hard-working, yeah, he's a baby abuser. Well, do you know what? You can't have everything, can you? He's hard-working. He's intelligent. So, yeah. They had SEX with a baby, but he's hardworking and intelligent. We can forget that, can't we? So he says as well, he entered into the adoption without premeditation of physical or SEX abuse. Social workers took steps to carry out checks. Shame they didn't look at Jamie Varley's phone, wasn't it? And ensure the adoption process was carried out properly. Steps were being taken to improve living standards by moving to a new home. There was nothing wrong with their living standards. Nothing. They described their home as a show home. It was a lovely house. It was big enough for a couple and a baby. Right. He says the offending relating to failing to protect. Oh yeah, sorry, I've just read that. Oh, it's going into that repetition thing as well again. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Every now and again, it just starts repeating what he's saying. Where is it going? Might have a look at Sky News. Oh, God. I've read that. Read that. Just trying to get back to the latest. We read that. So the defence is asking the judge. So in mitigation, Mr. Swift refers to his good character and background, because he went to a public school, didn't he? Went to a public school. So he's obviously, his parents are quite well off. Mr. Swift refers to the defendant's good character and background. So, Mr. Justice Turner will now rise to consider his sentencing remarks. He says this will take around an hour. So that was at 11:11 UK time. 12, yeah, so he's on a break at the moment. So I just want to read you what it says about what they're doing during the proceedings. Throughout the victim personal statements being read out and the proceedings so far, Varley has barely blinked, looking expressionless and staring into space with arms folded and legs crossed. He is wearing green trousers and a purple short-sleeved polo top. Green and purple. GF has been listening intently, although hasn't shown any emotion. He never shows any emotion, does he? GF is chilling, I think. You've got the drama queen of Varley, and in stark contrast, you've got the chilling sort of sang-froid or whatever you call it of GF. So let's see where it says on. So 38 minutes ago, the judge rose to consider sentencing. He said he will consider his remarks in return. He will not give a specific time for when he come back, but it'll be around midday. Yeah. So that was what else? Yeah. So that's where we are now. The judge has gone off to consider his sentence. And we just have to wait now. I'm going to have to go now because I've got to take my son to work. As soon as I come back, I presume the verdict will be in. Not the verdict, sorry. The sentencing will be in. Maybe it will be broadcast live. I don't know. I just hear noises in my living room as if there's like, I don't know, birds in here or somewhere. Anyway. Let me just put these down, windows down. So yeah, sadly I have got to go, but I will be back with the final sentencing. So let me know what you think it's going to be. I'd never even thought about whole life order. I think Varley might get a whole life order. I really think he might, because he fits the criteria. Causing the death of a child. Yeah, you can hear the bird. There are birds outside, but I can hear something. I don't know. I could hear something clicking. I thought, has a bird come in, or it could be a cockroach or something. Get all the bloody insects in the summer here in Spain. So those of you who don't know, I'm based in Spain, but yeah, reporting on this case all the way from Spain. But I am from Manchester originally. If I was there, I tell you, I would have been there at the court. I'd love to see these guys' faces when they get their sentences. But yeah, I'm really thinking now it might be a whole life order for Varley. I hadn't thought about before. I was thinking about 33 years, but whole life order would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Really, then he's never going to come out. He's never going to cause harm to anybody again. He's going to have a miserable life in prison. He is going to have a miserable life in prison, 100%. And he'll have to watch his back every minute. Both of them will. Varley, I think most of the hate will be directed at him. Okay, so we'll find out very shortly. What I found is normally the judges, they come back sometime in the afternoon, like some lunch. First of all, he'll have something to eat, I would imagine, as well. And then he'll prepare his sentencing remarks, and they're normally quite lengthy, aren't they? So I want to get it, a high profile case, and he'll want to get it. I always want to get it on, but maybe especially now. And he'll have to consider all the things that were presented, probably through all horrible visions again. So maybe it might be a little while comes back, but anyway, I will be back as soon as I can be to let you know the result. Thank you for caring about Preston, and may your God go with you. Bye bye.